Welcome to the WoT Blitz Iceberg. To celebrate everything WoT Blitz has achieved over the past 12 years and in anticipation of the Unreal Engine 5 release of WoT Blitz Reforged, a team of community helpers and I took it upon ourselves to create the WoT Blitz Iceberg, a collection of entries going over the weird and interesting history of this weird and interesting game, going all the way from common knowledge like ghost shells to whatever on earth this thing is. This is going to be a long video with a lot of information, so sit back, relax, and enjoy the video. And I hope we're able to showcase that there is a lot more to this game than what initially meets the eye. Blitz 2.0. This is Reforged, the update to Blitz where they're switching the engine from the current outdated Java engine to Unreal Engine 5. There's been a lot of backlash over the past year, especially when announcing it at the start of 2025. However, they've made improvements and changes during this time, so we'll see how it goes. And now with June 17th being the confirmed release date of Reforged, we thought it was necessary to get on with this video. When Reforged drops, every single tank and every map will have PBR. And as well as a graphics overhaul, there'll be a physics overhaul, so how the game feels will be slightly different as well. Tanks will be able to flip, which is quite crazy, so there's a lot of new things coming. Speaking of PBR maps. Castilla, Mittelberg, Lagoon and Desert Sands are currently the only maps that have PBR. As I said, Wargaming are changing all maps to PBR with Reforged, but it's currently funny that some of the maps have updated graphics and some maps look like they've come out of the Stone Age still. Speaking of maps, Easter eggs in the maps. There are a lot of Easter eggs in WoT Blitz, from hidden Sturm Tigers to Breaking Bad references. If you search hard enough, you'll most likely find some Easter eggs on every single map in the game. We have 115 different screenshots and videos for this section, so yes, there are a lot of Easter eggs in the game. Ghost shells. A moment where you shoot a shell and the client side and the game's servers don't match up with each other, and it appears that your shell travels straight through the enemy without damaging them. It's such an annoying bug, and hopefully it's fixed and Reforged. New players matchmaking. New players don't face well-established players anymore, and players with less than 5,000 battles are all fed into a different newbie matchmaking. This helps the new players get to grips with how to play the game properly, and without immediately being thrown into a game with a bunch of experienced players. How I wish I played with newbie matchmaking still. The Cobra Old Reliable Camouflage. This was a special 3D skin for the British Tier 9 collector tank Cobra. It was only available with a draw for the camo alongside the tank, and since then, when the tank has been re-released more recently, it's only come for sale with the Cobra Ocellus camo. Completely different to the old reliable one, and it might be something to do with the licensing, it being related to Vinnie Jones at the end of the day, but it's very strange that it's never come back to the game. AC Ocelot with 13,000 meters per second shell velocity. This is a funny glitch for the premium ammo of the AC Ocelot Hybrid Nation Tech Tree tank. Especially in modes like Gravity Force, you'll be sent flying in the opposite direction due to the recoil from a shell traveling at 51 times the speed of sound. The old UI. I'm just nostalgic, what can I say? Speaking of old UI, there used to be a reloading button. It was used to be able to share allies how much time you had left before you would reload it. If you'd reloaded and you pressed the button, the game would say ready to fire. It got replaced with hold the position, and later it was removed entirely. Now, in place of the ready to fire button, we have a full back command, which is equally as useful, I'd argue. +2 -2 matchmaking. Starting from Tier 5, players could be matched against Tier 7 tanks. This made grinding stock vehicles extremely difficult, and for example, a stock M4 can play against a fully equipped SU-152. Matchmaking also used to be super unfair, and for example, there could be a game with 2 Tier 10s, 1 Tier 9 and 4 Tier 8s playing against 2 Tier 10s, 2 Tier 9s and 3 Tier 8s. However, even now, it could be argued that matchmaking remains unbalanced, especially considering the 10.7 matchmaking scandal. This was the first time that skill-based matchmaking was tested in the game publicly, and a lot of people were quick to hate on it. The idea behind skill-based matchmaking is to match people up who have close to identical stats as possible, and as a result of that, it means that everyone's win rate and overall stats become closer together. So there would be no more good and bad players, because everybody would have to fight a really tough battle, no matter what battle they got into. Lots of people hated how hard the game became, and as a result, Wargaming ended up removing skill-based matchmaking. The AE Phase 1. This is the rarest tank in the game, arguably. Obtainable only from the end of each month's battle pass, in crates, with a hilarious 0.05% drop chance. The tank itself is not the best. Hacks and cheats in World of Tanks Blitz. Even a game like WoT Blitz can have hackers and cheaters, and in the game's more than 10 years history, there's been a number of hacks and cheats which have now been used and shown publicly on YouTube. These include cheats as simple as showing where each module is on a tank, to straight up invisible elements, tanks being able to drive through buildings, and fly hacks, which don't look too crazy now thanks to gravity force, but this was in a normal game, and also an artillery mode for missile tanks. Makes sense. Layer 2. Defender and Titan tanks. WoT Blitz has a bunch of tanks with lore in the game, and namely the Defender and Titan series of tanks. These tanks are often based off real tanks in the game, most likely with an auto-reloader or big variation in the gameplay of them. For instance, the Titan lab tanks have extra armor, which can be enabled with a special consumable. These tanks are classed as hybrid nation tanks in the game, and frequently they are acquired through crates. Military Honor. Military Honor was the old system to track how effective and how good a player was performing in a game, and it was available from update 4.4 until update 9.0. It was a system that allowed you to see a rating of stars for a player, and in over that 30-day period, you'd be rated from 0 stars up to 5 stars. Obviously 5 stars being the best performing players. It was ended up being removed as it became outdated and had other issues in the past, as I'll mention further down the iceberg. Old fail tunes. You used to be able to take a tier 1 tank and play it in a platoon with a tier 10 tank. I think that says all about how silly this entry is. For instance, playing with an MS1 alongside a mouse in the same game. You were able to play in these fail tunes until update 1.10, where Wargaming reduced the platoon limit to +2 -2. This means you were still able to play a tier 8 tank in a tier 10 game, but nothing any more extreme than that. Old music. Okay, we should just take a moment to listen to some of this old music for Blitz. T49 ATGM. The T49 ATGM was the first missile tank released into the game in update 4.1. Did you know that this was also the time that the Kampfpanzer 70 was released in the game as well? This was for the missile exercise event, where you had to complete tasks and then redeem the T49 ATGM as a rental tank. It was so incredibly overpowered in regular modes, with rockets for both standard heat and also premium HE rounds. And it also did unbelievable module damage, and that meant lots of Amarax. Server exclusive items. WoT Blitz is a massive game, and you may not have known it, but it has servers around the world with completely exclusive server items, namely the Chinese NetEase server and the Leicester version of Blitz. There are events, camos, and even tanks which are limited to only these regions, and will never be available to Blitz in EU, APAC, or NA, which is a shame. Fly glitches. These are crazy, and there's even more to them later on in the iceberg, so we'll just focus on the basics here. Basically, if you get stuck in a map, the game will try and unstick you from this spot, whilst charging up a force in order to push you away. But you're able to increase this force if you continue to squish here, and the game often tries to throw you back increasingly far. And with that increasing force that the game tries to push you back at, things like this can happen. Solo climbs. You may not have known this, but there are a number of different places on different maps where you're able to climb to them on your own. And whilst these are largely not usable in normal games, it's often funny how you're able to get into these positions where you'd expect map designers didn't intentionally design that. Layer 3. The Icy Comet camo and the Missile Man medal. In update 7.5, Wargaming officially removed ATGMs from the T92E1 and the Sheridan tanks, and the Icy Comet animated epic camouflage was a compensation to all players who had those tanks researched by the update date. What's more, if you played 25 games, in both of them combined, you'd receive a commemorative token on your account, and if you had played 700 games, an avatar. I expect this avatar is one of the rarest in the games for that reason. Real hybrid nation tanks. Interestingly enough, there are some hybrid nation tanks that actually exist in real life. Now, whilst that might sound like a tongue twister sentence, let me explain. The M4 FL10 and the T55A are classified as being tanks from the hybrid nation family in Blitz, whilst having legitimate roots as tanks in real life. The T55 was obviously a real Soviet tank, and in-game has an upgraded German gun. Maybe Wargaming couldn't decide if they wanted to put the German flag or the Soviet flag on it? Same goes for the M4 FL10, which is really a French-Egyptian tank. The Stridsvagn 74A2 is different. For some reason, it's just been plopped into the hybrid nation with a Swedish flag in the background of the tank. This was the first European tank to be added into the game, however, but they haven't moved it back even now that European tanks exist in Blitz. Special garages. There's been so many special garages for WoT Blitz over its more than 10-year history. Also, there's been a number of Easter eggs in the garages to commemorate esports victories, alongside a version of the Lost Temple from 1.3.0. Double bouncing the same shell. In incredibly surreal occasions, you're able to bounce the same shell on your tank twice at the same time. And in-game, the damage indicator will double up, showing that you blocked double the amount of damage than what actually happened from the original shot. Gun glitches through the engine deck. For the Cromwell B and the FV201 tanks, if you fully depress your gun over the back of the tank, your gun will glitch through the engine deck. It's a silly oversight in design in the game, but I guess it's useful that you can actually shoot out the back of your tank even though the gun is inside you. Because I imagine if that's not the case, your gun depression over the back will actually be gun elevation. The War Duck event. An April Fool's Day event where you were able to drive around in ducks, floating on a brand new and specially designed map like something out of World of Warships. The ducks had multiple guns to choose from. One was a single shot and one was an autoloader. And also you were able to shoot shark torpedoes. It was insane. We should bring back World of Ducks. Tanks with no ammo can't be ammo racked. In an almost Mythbuster type entry, it may seem obvious, but you cannot ammo rack a tank when it has no ammo loaded in it. It's a funny and a definitely appreciated attention to detail moment in the game. The Lurva compensation bug. Last September, an offer for the Lurva and the Senlac entered the in-game shop, alongside a different standalone offer for the Lurva. The weird thing about this is that if you bought these offers whilst already having the Lurva on your account, instead of being compensated 2.9 million credits, as you normally would, you were compensated that amount in gold. Now, Wargaming noticed this error and rolled back anybody's accounts who took advantage of this, but it's still completely insane that that was able to be overlooked. Layer 4. April Fool's Particles. For April Fool's Day 2016 and 2017 in WoT Blitz, the devs decided to add special particle effects for all tanks. In 2016, flowers, rainbows, and special graphics for large caliber guns, and in 2017, what looks like potatoes? Incredible stuff. Other noticeable April Fool's jokes from more recent years are the changes to battle modes and their names, the peculiar math offer, where you get 2,000 gold and an avatar for 1,500 gold, and this thing. The 2019 Camo Contest. The Smashing Camo Contest was an event in September 2019 which offered members of the community to come together and design unique camos to eventually be added into the game. As you can see, I have the winners of the EU region and the NA region on my account. M4 Sherman Legendary Camouflage. This is a super rare legendary camo for the Tier 5 M4 Sherman, originally only previewed in a coming soon message on the Blitz Discord server, but silently withdrawn due to community backlash. More recently, it's been re-released in crates, like in the Independence Day event in 2023, and in other camo crates as well. Wrong tank reward. There's been multiple instances of tech tree tanks being rewarded as a tank dropped from crates, rather than their premium version counterpart. More recently though, there's been other silly mistakes with tanks and crates, such as the Tech Tree T54 Lightweight in esports containers, and the Leo in a crate, for some reason, and also an event where you can get parts of certificates for the premium M24 Chaffee. Makes sense? Action X 401mm. At the back of the turret on the Tier 8 Action X, it has 401mm of armor. And, fun fact, this is not actually a mistake, this is intentional. As, in reality, the extremely thick armor there would serve as a counterweight to balance out and distribute the tank's weight more evenly. The more you know. Spare parts. If you know, you know. Spare parts used to be the currency required to unlock equipment in the game. It was added when Blitz went from only being able to have 3 equipment slots to 9, and the middle and bottom equipment line of equipment would use these spare parts. And these spare parts were accumulated by playing battles. It was a heavily debated part of the game, with a lot of the community not in favour of this feature. I think what annoyed me more about how equipment used to be unlocked was the timers alongside the spare parts, which meant it would often take days for your equipment to actually unlock, much different to what it is now. Launches. A not super technical but a super fun and easy to do push, where it requires you to ram into the back of a super light tank, usually something like the UE-57, whilst that tank is placed on another tank or against an object facing upwards, causing it to literally launch like a catapult into otherwise impossible to reach areas. You can also use the accelerator ability in Mad Games to achieve something similar, but it's always fun to watch tiny UE tanks fly. The M60 controversy. The M60 was gifted to some of the most highly valued players in the game as a Christmas gift in 2016, seemingly randomly, as there didn't seem to be any necessarily obvious requirements you had to achieve to be in with a shout of getting one. What originally was meant to be a nice way to reward some players of the game quickly turned into what the community regarded as a massive PR fail. Remember, this is 2016, and having a tier 10 tank was much harder in the days before boosters, and for this tank to be given out to random people for free was even more crazy. Not to mention this was a premium tier 10 tank, so that carries even more weight as well. The MS1 event. Wargaming brought back the beloved MS1 in an event in 2021, much to the community's surprise. All it took was 15 victories in the space of a week, and the MS1 was back, all yours in the game. The tank had grown up to tier 2 as well, and even better, it came with a legendary camouflage and other goodies that you were able to redeem for free too. Layer 5. Gamescom camo. Now, you might be thinking of the Tiger 1 Gamescom camo. This is not that. Unlike the Tiger 1 Gamescom legendary camouflage, this is a super rare green camo from Gamescom back in 2017, and it was only released during this time. Strong-willed camo. Similarly to the Gamescom camo, this is another super rare camo that was unlocked if you unlocked at least 6 equipment slots before the removal of spare parts. Other rare camos. Now hear me out. There are a bunch of other rare camos in the game, a lot of which you've also probably never seen before, such as Hargo Girls and Panzer, which was the super rare legendary Girls and Panzer camo for the tier 1 Hargo tank. Green Tundra, which you might know, as it used to be the universal camo available for all tanks, but for some reason, Wargaming just randomly removed it when they changed how camos were purchased. Festive Fireworks for Blitz's birthday in 2017. The Tournament Spring Season Camouflage, which was available from Autumn Season Lockboxes in 2020, which is ironic because it was never actually available in spring, nor in tournaments. Amarak with HE Splash. This is a super rare occurrence that allows you to detonate an Amarak whilst not actually hitting the tank, namely shooting underneath the tank, and the HE splashes up, critically damaging the ammo module. Bombardier and Lucky medals. These are both super rare medals, with the Bombardier medal being awarded if you destroy at least 2 enemy vehicles with 1 single shell, and the Lucky medal being awarded to somebody who witnesses an enemy vehicle being hit and destroyed by another enemy team player. You must be within 10 meters of the enemy vehicle at the moment of its destruction. These are also super exclusive medals for another reason. You are no longer able to get either the Bombardier medal or the Lucky medal in Blitz anymore. It's such a shame because you are still able to kill 2 tanks with 1 shot at the same time. But for some reason, the devs decided that, you know what, we don't want to include this in the game anymore. So for those people who have the medals on their profile, believe me, they are super exclusive. Crew can be hurt with a bounce. Now, funnily enough, my YouTube short was the reason for this entry being added to the iceberg. From one of my YouTube shorts back in 2024, I was able to get the commander of the T-95E6 hurt whilst my tank bounced a shell from the mouse. And this may have been due to the fact that the commander's hitbox might have slightly been peeking out of the armor of the tank at that time, because there's no other explanation for the fact that the shell completely bounced my tank, yet my commander was damaged. Layer 6. The Annihilator Uprising bug. There was a bug with the Annihilator in 2020. If you had the double shot ability in Uprising, the tank would not only reload immediately upon shooting the clip, but it would also shoot all of the ammo of that specific ammo type in one single go, rather than just the 3 shots in quick succession like the tank normally does. It completely broke the Uprising game mode, the Play Dead Uprising bug. Speaking of bugs in Uprising, there was another bug in 2021 where people who timed the Play Dead ability with the Blood Trail ability at just the right time, this happened. Unfortunately, this didn't result in you racking up tens of thousands of damage, but still, a pretty cool and a pretty silly visual bug. Driving through walls. This is now a patch glitch, but it literally allowed you to drive straight through certain walls if you hit them at the right angle at the right speed. It's like the saying where you can technically run through a wall if you match up all the atoms correctly. The chances of that happening, however, are very slim. Football Nations camos. These were some of the rare camos released for the Blitz Football Championship event in 2018, alongside the AMX CDC and its football-related legendary camo. And these camos were used to progress in the Blitz Time sub-event, 50% quicker if you equip the camos corresponding to the event at the same time. A really cool and interesting way to speed up progress, paying between 65 and 1200 gold for the camos, depending on the tier. True Devotion camo. This is the final camo entry of the Iceberg, and this is the most rare and most exclusive camo in the game, available alongside the controversial M60 release, and the slightly less controversial BT7 artillery release, as everyone got this for free. This was in 2016, and it was the camo that was only given to players who researched, at that time, 150 or more tanks, received the Ace Tanker Mastery Badge on each of those 150 tanks, which is insane, and who managed to train their crews to the maximum possible level. It's a super rare camo, and it was only given to those who at that point had basically finished the game. M46 pattern derp gun. When the M46 pattern was first released, amongst other more normal guns you could unlock for the tank, you could also equip a tier 5 105mm gun, dealing a 400 damage with HE, and 30mm of pen, and also some of the worst dispersion features in the entire game. Clearly this was the obvious way to play the tank, instead of upgrading it the intentional way. This is the only entry that I'm not going to actually read out by name, because I don't speak Turkish, but I thought it was a really cute thing to include in the Iceberg anyway. This was a message placed in the garage by Wargaming on behalf of Turkish CC WoT Blitz with Niklaus, asking his girlfriend to marry him in 2016. Through World of Tanks Blitz! That's a wholesome moment, and as far as I'm aware, she said yes. Layer 7. Old premium ammo for gold. In the first versions of Blitz, back in 2013, premium ammo was only able to be purchased with gold. It was a direct copy from WoT PC at the time, because like to WoT PC, there was no damage penalty for shooting premium. It's why in WoT PC, they're often called gold shells, because they were originally bought exclusively with gold. These gold shells were in Blitz for the first 2 to 3 years of the game being live. Nowadays, however, premium shells can be bought for either gold or credits, but in 99% of instances, they deal less damage and have more penetration. Probably a better way for it to be. Speaking of ammo, the SP1C gun depression weirdness. The SP1C has different gun depression depending on the shell that you shoot from it. It's crazy. The HE on the tank has such low shell velocity that it looks like you have more gun depression than you actually have. But it's just a visual representation that the shell can't travel as far because the shell physically is not flying fast enough to travel as far. Leicester exclusive tanks. There are a number of tanks exclusive to Leicester Tanks Blitz that WoT Blitz doesn't have access to. They also have an entirely different Hybrid Nation tech tree to WoT Blitz. And this Hybrid Nation tech tree has similar characteristics to the Titan tanks, whereby they have extra armor that can be applied to them during a battle. Maximum shell distance for all types of guns. Now this is a crazy one. For autocannons and burst guns, at a range of 415 meters, the shells disappear and register as non-penetrations, even while they have the required penetration value at range to do so. But interestingly, at 445 meters, the shells stop in mid-air along with their tracers and don't even register as hits. However, for regular guns, initially it was thought that they had a range of 720 meters, according to stat sites. But after testing, shells were confirmed to hit targets beyond that range. At 725 meters, a limit was found on penetration for AP, heat, and APCR. Hesh would perform similarly, but intermittently. The main issue is that it's very hard to extend WoT Blitz maps beyond 720 meters. So we don't know for sure if shells can travel even further than this, so more testing is needed. Mines_Test. Mines_Test was a special map of the original reworked mines in Update 3.1. It was available only in training rooms for people to test it before it went public, and Wargaming allowed the community to fill out a questionnaire based on what they thought and upload it to the WoT Blitz forum. The reworked and current version of Mines was released in Update 3.3. Object 907 in 2015. The Object 907, the Tier 10 Soviet medium tank, was released in 2021 in crates. However, there had been promotional images of the Object 907 floating around on the internet since, at latest, 2015, as you can see by this forum post. The only question is, why did Wargaming sit on this tank for 6 years before releasing it? Old detection sounds. Here's the MP3 files of the old detection sounds used in game. Speaking of these old sounds, radio sounds. So, this is a weird one, as in the game files, there are crew voice lines for radio operators. In Blitz, The radio is a hidden module, and the radio also features no purpose in the battle whatsoever. Now this is where it gets interesting. We found an absolutely ancient photo of Blitz, probably in an alpha or pre-alpha phase, and as you can see at the bottom of the screen, there's a radio operator graphic, and you can also see there's a radio module here as well. So I expect if the radio or radio operator got damaged, then these ancient voice lines would trigger. We did double check, these are from the original recordings of the Blitz voice lines, rather than the WoT PC ones that have potentially been ported over. So no, this was recorded at the same session as all of the other voice lines, it's just weird that these ones got scrapped.
Radio hit, we can only talk locally. Radio is hit, radio range decreased. The radio was hit, we cannot raise anyone outside this area. The antenna is damaged, we can only talk locally. The radio is damaged, see if you can raise anyone. The radio man is dead, our radio range is reduced.
Layer 8. Abandoned maps. There's been a number of abandoned maps in WoT Blitz's history, and here you can see an overview of some of them. East. This is a very similar map to Lost Temple, with mock-ups and super test versions of the map released during the time that Wargaming removed Lost Temple from the game, so the player base was super intrigued by the style of this map. Bridge. This map, as you can see, has a massive bridge in the middle of it. It could have been an abandoned or original version of New Bay, maybe? Yukon. This was the original version of Yukon. Yes, it has the same name as the one that's actually in the game, but as you can see from the first promotional shots of the Chimera on this map, this abandoned map is at least 6 years old. And obviously the actual Yukon map doesn't have any snow on it. Well, as much snow on the ground at least. Safari. A weird Desert Sands Hellas hybrid maybe? Dead tank teleport. This is a really weird, extremely rare glitch that happens if a tank dies or if a turret flies in a weird position, causing a charge to accumulate due to the game engine. Now, this charge is stored until something else runs into it, such as a projectile running into that destroyed tank, and as a result, it pops up. Or, even more insanely, you can use this as mobile armor, as seen when this T-124 drives forward into the hull of that 50B. Absolutely insane stuff. Speaking of teleports, there are a number of teleportation glitches too in WoT Blitz. Here's how they work in essence. When your tank is on an unstable surface, you'll notice it slightly twitch and wobble about. This is due to the unstuck script in the game, added to prevent you getting stuck on terrain. The theory is that when you stabilize your tank, you'll notice that the twitching stops, and from then on, that charge is accumulated. From there on out, the longer you wait, the more power you gather, and depending on where and how you stabilize, you will glitch a certain distance and direction. Even more so than this, you're able to control these teleports, and with enough practice, you're able to consistently teleport to certain locations on the maps. There's a massive rabbit hole when it comes to these teleportations, so here you can see an assortment of different ones. Dying by crew members. This is a heavily debated and discussed topic, where some people believe very early on in the game's life, if the entire crew got knocked out, the game would register you as being killed without factoring how much HP you still had. However, this would have been such a rare and incredibly unlikely event, and the fact it happened so long ago, we only have this one screenshot. More recently in the game's history, when people have tested this in training rooms and things like that, their tanks have survived with all modules and crew being damaged. IS-7CL. This was an unreleased version of the IS-7, originally showcased in a teaser video alongside the Blitz Cup Finals in 2021 as a special IS-7. It was never released to the public, unfortunately, in Blitz. However, Leicester has released the tank in 2025, renaming it as the IS-7 Swift, and this was a reward for a clan event, an event that was designed similarly to the 50TP, WT Ritter, and Batchat Avenir events in World of Tanks Blitz. Cruiser 2 hole in hull. Here's a bit more of a silly entry that a lot of you guys probably don't know. The Tier 1 British tank, the Cruiser 2, has a massive hole at the top of the engine deck. It's technically regarded as spaced armor in a Tier 1 tank, so literally, no matter what you shoot at it, the tank will bounce. You know, anything from any Tier 1 tank all the way up to a 183, as you can see in this video. Cursed WoT Blitz ads. Being a mobile game, Blitz is also one of those games which sometimes posts, let's say, interesting mobile ads. These ads don't necessarily showcase what the game is in a realistic light, but it's funny that all mobile game developers choose to promote their games in this style. Here's some of the interesting mobile ads that Blitz has posted recently, and look out for something a bit weird that we're going to cover later in the iceberg. Tournament glitch. Here's a weird glitch that happened in tournament games back in the day. With the old military honor system, you used to automatically be given a negative point if you skipped a tournament battle. This was standard and penalised people who intentionally skip games. A good feature. However, this feature glitched, and upon missing a game, the game issued a negative complaint every second against this player, causing them to rack up tens of thousands of negative reviews. Invisible tanks and game crashes in update 1.10. Unlike nowadays in game modes where you can make your tank go invisible, in update 1.10, there were literally invisible tanks in random games. This wasn't due to anyone cheating, rather the game decided it didn't want to work, and nobody could see the opposite team for both teams. As you can see, this is why everyone was sat in cap, because there was no other way to see where each other was. 1.10 was also bad for loading into the game, as there was another bug from that update which caused entire teams to crash out a mere 30 seconds into the game, meaning that one team could farm the entire hit point pool of another, whilst the other team would die with 0 damage. The healing consumable. The healing consumable was a super consumable, tested alongside super speed boost and reactive armor, and it was shown as a concept on an official livestream by the developers. What essentially did was slowly recover a fixed amount of hit points over the time. And if the tank was hit during the recovery period, the process would be stopped and the consumable would go into cooldown. Since it always has been, and still is, completely impossible to recover hit points in standard mode, such a consumable was a completely game-breaking idea. So, we're probably glad it wasn't introduced into the game. Outside the red line. For the longest time, we thought the red line was this impossible barrier to cross, unless if you glitched yourself all the way out of the map. Now that is, until some people with arguably far too much time on their hands found another way. They found out how to aim teleports on the strip of land just beyond the red line. Obviously you can see the game's not a big fan of this, and so it's teleporting them back into the map. Now, just a few weeks ago, another discovery was found. By showing tanks behind buildings just on the red line, it was found out that these tanks would not teleport back at all. However, unfortunately, the dream of driving a tank freely beyond the red line is still classed as a dream, because whilst these tanks are beyond the red line, they can't actually move. No! T49A returns. Now, for a day in 2024, the T49A was able to be played in regular battles. This was because a Wargaming community manager gave access to the tank to a Blitz CC, and they were able to play it just like normal once again. The tank still had missiles for both heat and HE, but the community noticed very quickly that this really broken tank was back, and so the tank got taken away again. Layer 9. Friendly fire in regular battles. You used to be able to friendly fire in regular battles in WoT Blitz in 2014. Now I was trying to find video footage of this actually happening prior to update 1.4.0, but all I was able to find was a video of a guy shooting only HE in a Valentine 2, and a floating Panzer III at the back of the map. Interestingly, that tank used to be tier 4. Anyway, here's screenshot proof of it happening, with teams having negative scores in the game. Here you can actually see one teammate turn blue with a -1 score. Friendly fire is insane. Charge delays and charge chains. This is a very technical entry, and the guys who found this out are completely insane. It's a physics-breaking glitch in the game which essentially flings tanks all over the place, and when interacting with other objects, terrain or other tanks, you can set off these chains of charges. Now, charge delays are slightly different. You have to charge them by starting to do a regular fly glitch, and if they don't activate, you technically have the charge stalled in the tank, ready to release as soon as the tank drives onto uneven terrain. It's the same concept as the dead tank teleport in Layer 8, and as a result, they can turn into absolute rocket ships. Super heavies and heavily armoured tanks being penned with HE, due to how a lot of the tanks are modelled in WoT Blitz, and as you can see from these videos, they are made up of a lot of internal structures. If you stick a gun inside these tanks, you can often pen them with HE when normally, if you shoot them from the outside, you wouldn't be able to. I guess the next time you come across an Object 263, Tortoise or Jaegeru, you should definitely try this. The 047 alternative skin. Okay, I lied. This is the last entry on the iceberg about camos. But this is an unreleased version of the camo for the 047, an already super exclusive tank that's barely seen on the battlefield. And this camo is in white. Instead of the black camo, the 047 Phoenix, we got on release. The 047 itself was a collaboration between the legendary mecha designer Kunio Okinawa and Blitz, and I guess the light colours just weren't preferred as much over the dark ones, and so it got scrapped. An interesting further detail about the 047, the War Duck shares its tracks with the 047. So it's very interesting, it technically has tracks rather than just floats on the water. Violent and extreme visual glitches. The game is definitely not immune to a lot of violent and crazy visual glitches. Funnily enough, I have a super old video on my channel when I experienced similar crazy visual glitches. But personally, I think it enhances the gameplay experience rather than taking away from it. But on a more serious note, we're not really sure why this happens. Heavy Tank 6. The code name for the Tiger Kuromori Mine, the Heavy Tank 6 was a Japanese tank with a German engine, gun and shells. It was also classified as the Tiger 1 Girls and Panzer, as it's the Tiger 1 from the Girls and Panzer anime that Wargaming has sold in promotion with a number of other Girls and Panzer tanks. The Heavy Tank 6 was the version of the tank that was used in testing as well, so it was potentially a way to hide the fact that Wargaming wanted to do a collaboration with Girls and Panzer before the actual event went live. It's just very weird to see a Tiger 1 with a Japanese background called Heavy Tank 6. Layer 10. The bottom layer of the iceberg. This is some of the most obscure and unknown stuff in the entire game. And it gets even more insane the further down this list of entries that we go. So prepare yourself for this. These are two gamers with extreme numbers of games and their specific favourite tanks. One of them has a combined 154,000 games in the SP1C. And the other, more than 120,000 games in their top 10 most played tanks. Absolutely insane commitment to the cause. SPGs and game files. There's a lot of SPG in the game, hence why there's been endless leaks and confirmations of artillery being added to Blitz. Spoiler alert, Arty's actually been in Blitz for years and years in the game files. You can actually blame artillery for your losses now. The MTLS 1G14. This is confirmation that at least at some point, Wargaming were working on double-barreled tanks in Blitz. Interestingly enough, this was, and was for a long time, the only double-barreled tank in WoT PC. Do you think these files prove that Wargaming was planning on doing the same thing for Blitz? And to release the MTLS as the first double-barreled tank at Tier 3? We may never know. The Tanknator. Wargaming were planning on doing a collaboration with Hot Wheels. However, it seems that for a lot of their games, it never went ahead. This is the tank that was supposed to be released in the WoT Blitz Battle Pass in April 2022. The Tanknator. We originally found proof of this by searching a file on the Blitz client called Stuff. And there was the icon for the collaboration, designed to look like a packet with a Hot Wheels car in. We also found in the files that there was supposed to be a legendary camouflage for the tank as well, called Treasure. This is potentially what the legendary camouflage could have looked like, as in real life there's a Tanknator called Treasure Hunt. Unfortunately, Blitz had to scrap this idea for undisclosed reasons, and instead of releasing the Tanknator as Battle Pass number 20, they used that month to re-establish how Battle Passes would work moving forward, and ended up releasing Charles as Battle Pass 21. TR_Optimus. This is another tank found in the game files and never released. It was originally spotted in a video released by Wargaming in 2017, when actually they were showcasing the Warhammer 40k tanks. It was forgotten about for the longest time, until these promotional videos were released by Wargaming just last year. And as you can see in this YouTube video, and this screenshot from an ad, that a tank that almost looks like Optimus Prime is in amongst a bunch of other Blitz tanks. Potentially this could have been the Optimus from 2017? Mechs in the game files. In the OpenTest 6.3 client of World of Tanks Blitz, this photo of a mech was accidentally added to the tank carousel. It's known as mech_LAN42, and we also have access to strings for it in the game as well. Even more strangely, this mech appears as an Easter egg on Mayan Ruins, and as the map Mayan Ruins was released in Update 3.9 in 2017, why on earth was this mech then released separately in the tank carousel in Update 6.3, more than 2 years later? I guess people were too focused on the brand new Italian auto reloaders to even care. Tanks getting stuck in mid-air, and ultimately freezing other tanks as well. This is the most deeply theorized glitch in the game, and ultimately should deserve to be at the deepest point in the iceberg. This happens in excruciatingly rare occurrences, and we don't know a huge amount about it. But even so, it's insane that in a game where you shouldn't be able to even go upside down, people have been able to find these game-breaking exploits, which not only allow you to stay upside down, they sometimes cause you to float meters in the sky, and also when you interact with other tanks, they get stuck as well. This is the end of the iceberg. So thank you everybody for getting to the end. This has been a long time in the making, but this is by no means absolutely everything that's happened in the game. As our full iceberg image has over 450 entries, obviously there's a load of entries that I haven't been able to cover in this video, and it's taken me a month to put it together, so I apologise for the lack of uploads, but this is the reason why. I want to thank absolutely everybody who's helped work to make this video possible. Your names are on screen now, and if it wasn't for you guys, this video wouldn't have been possible, so thank you. If you want to join the community of people who helped make this iceberg, we have a Discord server, so click the icon on screen now if you want to join the server. And with that being said, thank you all very much for watching. This has been the World of Tanks Blitz Iceberg.